Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you joining us this evening for this LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and yes, we're on YouTube too. Each and every time I have the pleasure of having a guest who happens to be an author, speaker, or business entrepreneur. But today's guest, in fact, is a leading podcaster here in India. In fact, the number one podcast coach in India. And he has interviewed well over 100 entrepreneurs, global personalities, and authors. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Bijay Gautam. Welcome, Bijay.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. One question I'd like to ask all my guests before we get started is really, it's about what is your why? There's always something that drives each one of us to get out of bed every day and do what we love and deeply passionate about. And I'd love to hear your why. I mean, number one podcast coach in India is the branding that I see all over the search engine optimization online. But love to know behind the scenes, what's your why, Bijay? You're on mute. Do you want to exit and re-enter, Bijay? Just exit and re-enter. I've been following Bijay for a number of years and first met him at the PSAI conference, actually, I think 2-3 years back. And since that time, I've seen him grow leaps and bounds. People have aspired to be podcasters, and I've seen him be a great coach to those who would like to be and have their own podcast channel. And having listened to some of his podcasts, he really finds wonderful personalities from across the world, be they authors, speakers, and global personalities. And he really shares insights in who they are behind the scenes. Many of the personalities that we've met have great success stories, but those success stories have certainly had their ups and their downs and their stories and their challenges. And he has a great way in his podcast to sort of go personal and understand what was their why, what was their purpose that drove them to really sort of have the success that each of these people that he's interviewed have had. And there's always one story or one person or one idea that has transformed each of these individuals to have a success story. So that's one of the reasons I was really compelled to invite Bijay to be on this LinkedIn Live. We hope he gets to join us back very soon. But because of these phenomenal interviews that he's had with over 100 global personalities, I felt I'd love to get some insights on, in one way is what it takes to be a good podcaster. Where do you start? And then what's his experience been interviewing well over 100 people? So looking forward to having Bijay join us very soon. And in the meantime, I thank you for your patience whilst we wait for him to join us once again. And it's been a pleasure hosting these LinkedIn Lives. I've hosted over 25 of them in the last few months. I've had some great authors from Marshall Goldsmith, Ron Kaufman, to name a few, who've been featured in these interviews. We've also had some great CEOs from Dr. Sanjay Arora of Suburban Diagnostics, Paul Dupuis, the former CEO of Randstad India, and some eminent authors as well. So I'm looking forward to continuing having some nice personalities in our sessions. And I believe Bijay is now back with us. Bijay.
Sorry about that. You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Really sorry about that. I'm having some sort of issue with my mic, and even you can see the flickering here in the camera. I'm just trying to figure that out. But yeah, really sorry about that. So coming back to what you've asked, Gautam, what's my why? I was working as a research scientist at a pharmaceutical company, and when I was working as a research scientist, I realized that this is not what I wanted to do anymore with my life, and I felt in a way stuck where I had no clue of what I wanted to do next in my life. And at the same time, I was not quite enjoying what I was doing. And when I was at that moment, quite feeling stuck at that point of time, I realized that I was more of a person who wanted to, um, learn from people and and find the answers for my life which I was not able to find the answers, where I felt stuck. And then I realized that I needed to find a way where I could realize my own potential and share it with the world. And that's when I thought podcast can be a great medium for me to do that and help others do the same as well, help them realize their potential. And that's the reason why everything that I do aligns with that. I want to help people realize their potential.
Fantastic, BJ. That's really inspiring. I mean, as you said, you were a scientist and you had the compelling sort of vision to sort of do something on your own and at the same time help others sort of find their purpose, find their why, and share their story. You must have had several challenges and at the same time lessons learned from this experience. Could you share some insights into that?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of them. So one, that challenges, and one of the biggest challenge that I had was of the self doubt. And because I have never done something like this, and as I was saying earlier, I was working as a research scientist, and the way a transition to podcasting happens was I needed to find those answers on, hey, I have no clue of what I should be doing next in my life. And because I had no clue, I thought, and luckily for me, Gautam, I was exposed to the other part of the world, which was the people, who have figured out what they wanted to do in their life. Authors who have written the best-selling books, mountaineers who are climbing mountains, people who are giving TED talks, and CEOs who are running companies. I was exposed to that world through conferences, events, and TED talks and books. And I thought, hey, these people seem to have figured out what they wanted to do in their life. I think the best way for me to figure out what I want to do in my life is have conversation with these people. And maybe if I can ask them, hey Gautam, how did you figure out, what you wanted to do in your life? And ask maybe, CEO of some company, hey, how did you figure out that you wanted to become an entrepreneur? Or maybe ask a mountaineer, hey, how did you figure out that all you wanted to do in your life is to climb one mountain after another, and maybe to a spiritual leader, and how did you know that you wanted to become a spiritual leader and share your lessons and insights and ideas with the world and help world become a better place with your spiritual practices and the wisdom that you have gained. And with that intent, Gautam, I started getting in conversation with people, and I thought the best way for me to find that blueprint for myself is to explore a lot of blueprints that people have used to navigate their own life. And maybe in those conversations I'll find the blueprint that I'm going to use in my own life as well, right? So that's how I started having conversation. And it turned out that a lot of people who were listening to those conversations, and I love that you are doing this, and in these conversations I'm sure there are a lot of people who are listening to these conversations with me, and a lot of other people whom you bring here. I'm sure there are a lot of people who would resonate, who would feel that, oh, you know what, I had that question and Gautam is asking that question on my behalf. And that started happening for me as well. A lot of people started resonating with the questions that I was asking. And honestly, it was truly, I was trying to scratch my own itch and find the answer for myself. And it so happened that there were so many other people who had the similar questions. They wanted to learn, they wanted to ask the same questions to the people, but they never got that chance, right? So now when that started happening, I realized that, hey, you know what, this is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life. Now, talking about the challenges, the first one is self-doubt. As I said, I have never done something like this. And the first thing was, am I good enough? And also, for the, and I have my own set of challenges, one of them being this weird accent that I have, and also, and also like one of the things is, one of the things is like, will people listen to it? And as I was talking, I have my own set of challenges, right? So I have this weird accent. I make a lot of grammatical errors when I speak, maybe less now than when I started. And, I had my own set of challenges that I had when I started, and also with that, a lot of self-doubt crippled in. And also, are people finding value? Am I even adding value to people's life with these conversations? Is this even of some value to someone? And those are the kind of doubts that I had to obviously deal with. And then Gautam, the lesson learned by going with those doubts is, and it's something that is at core of what I do today, and what I genuinely, honestly, truly believe is authenticity is antidote to fear and self-doubt. And when if you go back and listen to the first few episodes of my show, you will realize that I was trying to copy some of the podcasters that I look up to, and some of the television presenters or radio presenters that I looked up to. And then when I had this realization that if I really want to make my own identity, no matter how good or bad I am, it's more about embracing who I am and becoming my own authentic self. And the moment I started, embracing that and become more of Bijay than anyone else, it turns out that the fear of that, the doubt, the self-doubt, and also the pressure to impress anyone else, all of a sudden went away. And I think that was one biggest lesson that I had, which is authenticity. The second one, I really had to struggle with is getting better at conversations. So I love to call myself a selective extrovert, right? So I can talk about when it's about podcasting. If you ask me about podcasting or the things that I'm good at, I can go on and talk a lot. But let's say if I meet you on elevator and we have no specific topics to talk about, I struggle a lot generally to have conversations. And now here I am saying that I want to start a podcast, and I'm not at all good at having conversations. I just don't know how to bring context to the conversations that I'm having, and I struggle big time doing that. And what I would do is I would have a note, and I would write 10 set of questions, and I'll just read in front of the guest, and that's where I started. But again, I think, and I would just read out those questions, the guest would answer, and there is no building of the context, there is no sharing or value addition from my side. But I started from there, right? And when I started doing that, I started getting better at it, and now obviously I have my own journey, and not to say that I now am a better conversationalist or whatever, but I know my journey. But at the same time, I know that I have improved a lot in the past 4 years, because I showed up week after week, episodes after episode, and forced myself to be in front of that microphone and get on the conversation. So I think the lesson there learned there is, you can't get better at something that you don't start. If you want to get better at something, then you got to start. So I think those would be a few challenges, and some of the lessons that I have learned along the way.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing, Bijay. There were a lot of depth and a lot of in the answer that you just shared now. And just to take away some quick high level overpoints. Firstly, what I heard is that you were looking and searching for your own answers, and that drove you to then say there are these successful people, be they authors, be they speakers, be they corporate CEOs, all over the globe, who are already perceived as a success. They've already achieved great uh, milestones in their careers, in their journeys of life. And what I liked, and is that you also shared that this was a diverse portfolio of guests. It wasn't just authors or just speakers. You mentioned people who have been TED speakers. You mentioned people who've climbed Mount Everest or climbed several peaks in the world, to people who've recovered from a calamity, I guess, to people who've become global best-selling authors. So the diversity of success stories also was engaging for your viewers. And also the fact that there were a lot of viewers who resonated with your purpose in helping them find an answer, because we're only in our to some extent our comfort zone. We have maybe, as you said, maybe some self-limiting beliefs, or some reservations. And this podcast help you only build your own confidence, your communication skills, your conversation skills. So it was a journey which, when you look at your initial podcast to where you are today, where now you are, India's #1 podcast coach. You've interviewed well over 100 guests as well, and you built your credibility of your own authentic message. So it's been a journey of transformation for yourself, and wanted to acknowledge and appreciate and congratulate you on your transformation journey, BJ.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you so much. And again, I think, I see myself as somebody who just, trying to figure things out, and, the journey continues, and showing up, consistently, I think
Yes.
has really, played in my favor, I would say.
Fantastic. Now you've inspired talk, and you have well over 100 guests. We're not here to sort of run through all of them, but if there were 3 or 4 that you could highlight, which really perhaps you could mention them, and some sort of takeaway that you had, just to get some sort of a high level insights into some of those stories or messages that you learned, I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Gautam, there are a lot of them, a lot of stories. Every single, time I get on a conversation, there is something that I pick, and something that really, gets stuck with me, and that lives forever, because, I'm getting in conversation almost every week. And there's a lot of lessons learned. But, just when I look back and try and condense some of the lessons that I have learned from the conversations that I've had on my podcast, the one that really stands out, number one, is there is no one success template. Oftentimes, we think that there is one success path that is defined, in which we are often told that, hey, you know what, this is the success path that you should be following. Then we kind of bind ourselves, and we restrict ourselves, and that this is what I'm going to do. And when I was on this exploration mode of what should I really be doing, what should be my blueprint, I realized that, hey, you know what, every single person I had on my show had a completely different journey, different path, and they have different success template. And it was such a big mental switch for me, and also a revelation for me, that, hey, you know what, there is no one success template, and you define and create what success means for you. And I interviewed a billionaire who runs this $1 billion company, who is sending rockets to the moon through his company. He has a vision to eliminate illness from the entire world. I'm talking about Naveen Jain. When I had the conversation, his entire mission and the way he looks at success is try and find the big problem as possible, and try and find the solution to them, and help people in some shape or form, and also maybe increase his wealth. And when I talk to a monk, like, who have given up all the stuff in their life, and the only thing that they're looking at in their life is to deepen their spiritual practices, and then share their wisdom and knowledge with the world. They have nothing to do with the material wealth, and they don't want to accumulate wealth. And when I I was talking about the mountaineer, and when I spoke with the mountaineer who climbed all the highest 7 summits, Satyarup Siddhant, who is a record holder in Limca book, and also the youngest Indian to summit all the highest 7 peaks of the world, and also the volcanic summits, who went on to ski in the North and South Pole. When I had conversation with him, all he's looking forward to in his life is the next adventure, the next mountain, the physical mountain, which he want to climb, and he don't want anything else. He don't, and that for him is a success, where climb one mountain after another, and another mountain after another, right? So, and that completely changed the way I thought about success, and that really helped me think a lot on and on my own success template. The second lesson, rather more, I would say, second trait that I have picked from a lot of the guests is humility. And I think humility is the biggest trait one can build. Now, when I was talking to these people whom I thought, these are such a huge, such a big personalities, and I don't stand anywhere, close to them. But when I got on that conversation, I was treated as if I was the most important person at that point of time, in their life. And now, when I realized that, how can this be that, somebody who is at that level of success, who have seen the world, who have achieved all the stuff in their life, can treat someone with the humility. And the lesson, I have learned is your successes and accomplishments can get people attracted to you, can, get people to admire you. But the only thing that's going to make people your lifelong admirer is the humility that you have and how you treat them. And I think, some of the people that I have huge respect for in my life are the people who made me feel as if I was someone. And, I think that's the biggest, lesson that I've learned, which is the, humility is the biggest lesson. And also I realize that these people understand that they are not special and they have flaws like everyone else. And this is one of the lessons that I picked, Gautam, which is, somebody said like, but how do I be more humble, and, how do I develop humility, is by understanding that we all, I have flaws, and every single person in the world has their own set of flaws. And when you understand that I do have my flaws and everyone else do have their flaws, then, the arrogance, that does not kind of, take the forefront, or the front seat, because you know that you are flawed like everyone else, and you are, also one of those people. And I think, this is one of the core values that I myself live with, and biggest lesson. And the third one, which you would love, Gautam, is whom you break bread with will define how you will progress in your life. And I have realized, they know who are the people that they need in their life, and they also know who are the people that they need to cut out of in their life ruthlessly. And this is something that where I feel I struggled a lot to cut people out of my life who were not serving or who were not helping me progress further. And because, some of the time these are the people, closest people in your own network, and it's very difficult for you to let them go, or at least, cut them in a way that they don't impact your own life and decision making, and, and vision that you have in the life. So I think, that's another lesson, like whom you break bread with. Because if there is one thing, Gautam, that has really, really helped me in my life, is this lesson, which is like, whom you break bread with. Because let's say if everything fall apart today, and if I go back to zero, right, I know that there are people whom I can fall back to, because these are the, people whom, as you say, whom I have, broken bread with, and they know that, what, and there is a strong relation that was built over the period of time, which I know that, I can bounce back, because I have these people, whom I had the opportunity to network and build that stronger lifelong friendship with. And the last one, I would say, I think there's already three, and the last one that I want to quickly share is the power of your story can change someone's life. Oftentimes we feel that, hey, you know what, there is no power in my story, in my narrative. And I think, that is the biggest thing that you can do. If you are thinking of like, hey, how can I be of more service and value to the world? You don't have to do anything. Just share your story. Share, something, pick moment from your life which can inspire people. Pick that moment from your life which can, which can help people move forward in their life. So maybe practice vulnerability, and trust me, it's very, very, very tough thing to do. Become vulnerable and put your flaws out there. And honestly, this is something that I'm trying to do more of. And every single time I do, I see a lot of people who relate to that story. And the reason why we are scared of becoming vulnerable in front of people is the fear of judgment. But ask yourself, often when people are vulnerable and and when they share the story, how many times often we judge people, or how many times do we relate? And it turns out when somebody is becoming vulnerable and sharing the deepest, darkest moments from their life, with the hope that it's going to inspire people, people often resonate and relate to that, and they see that with empathy, not with with judgment. We don't judge someone who talk about the failure on social media. We don't do that, but we often empathize with the person, and we take the lesson. So I think, and it's like a vulnerability is a muscle, and that it takes a lot of courage to kind of be vulnerable and open and share your life, but practice it, if you can. It also liberates you from trying to be someone else, because when you are vulnerable, when you have shown your life out to the world, then you don't have to act as if I am so and so. You can be who you are, online, offline, when you meet someone, or when you are on all these places. You don't have to act as if, because you are vulnerable. And so yeah, I mean, I think, Gautam, those are some of the lessons that I have picked, and which and obviously there are tons and tons of other lessons that I've learned from the people, but these are some of the lessons that I would like to highlight here.
Thank you so much, BJ, with what you've shared. There are many insights, and obviously, you started sharing about the humility of all these great personalities who've achieved huge levels of success, but when they were in conversation with you, they showed you complete respect. They were fully present, and they were, very. The humility was really omnipresent and appreciated by you. You also shared about breaking bread and the quality of people we spend time with, which was great, because I really resonate with that. Not only because my book, I've seen from experience, it could be friends, it could be family members, it could be your customers, your vendors. You certainly want to spend time with people who uplift, encourage, inspire you, help you be the best version of yourself, because we all go through ups and downs. So the people we break bread with will directly correlate how we bounce back or how we thrive, etc. And the last point you mentioned also, I mean, to me, the power of a great story is really, really important. And when you mention vulnerability, some people see it as a weakness, but I think you and me definitely see vulnerability as a strength. And if there are people who are going to judge you, so be it. That helps you qualify, because the right people will connect with you. The right people will feel, aligned to you, and will connect with you. And that really what is that when you share your story, the people who align to your message will come and connect with you, and that's fantastic. I'd like to take a moment to just acknowledge some of the people who've been on our LinkedIn Live today. Kevin Barber from Europe. We have Rohit Desai, Dr. Mohammed Rishad. And in fact, the question that Prashant has is, I think very relevant to the answer you just gave to some extent. What is more important, the format of your podcast or the guest list? Asking this as there are many podcasts on air these days, and I just wanted to get your perspective on the podcast format versus the guest list.
So Prashant, thanks for asking that. And so oftentimes a lot of people think that getting well-known guests is a great way to succeed with podcasts. And I would say it's not always that. It's finding that balance between getting people who are not necessarily very popular, but who has who have got very interesting perspectives to share with your audience, where audience will, the guest who will make your audience think, the guest who will make your audience, on their head, go like, "Who? I haven't really thought about that," and I think that's a really interesting perspective that I've got. And I have realized this, Gautam, for social media, to get some of the people who are really popular can help, where you can, boast and say that I have had so and so person on the show, but not necessarily, that's not necessarily in those conversations you will find something new and meaningful, because these are often the people who are interviewed a gazillion times, right? But what if you've got somebody who have a deeper wisdom to share with the audience, and bring different perspective on the show? So I think I would say it's a balance of getting popular personality and also getting people who have a lot of really interesting perspectives to share, but not as popular. And also, because it's Prashant is saying there are so many podcasts, more than 2 million right now. you know, when it comes to the format, try to be as crisp as possible and stick to the point rather than talking a lot about stuff. And so try and make it crisp, short, and to the point. That always works, where audience feel that, oh, you know what, I'm getting a lot of value out of it. And unlike clubhouse sessions where you sit there for an hour and then you have to just wait for that one piece of nugget or that one piece of wisdom, but podcast is more structured, which means audience expect that they get a lot of nuggets of wisdom in that 30, 45 or 25-minute long episode.
Great. No, thanks so much, Peter. We have another question from Rohit Desai asking, are you aware of topographic audio informative soon to be inculcated in Google audio pods?
Rohit, I haven't really heard about topographic audio informatives on Google audio pods, but what is coming on Google is, right now when we search for something on Google, Google indexes text, videos, and audios. Now what we'll start seeing is Google will start indexing audio as well. And the way it's gonna work is, for instance, Gautam and I, when we are having this conversation, let's say we are talking about vulnerability, and we take the audio out of it and let's say publish this as a podcast episode. Now Google is gonna take that audio on the back end, it's gonna transcribe this audio, and when somebody searches for, let's say, vulnerability, then it's gonna pull this particular episode, which not necessarily is about vulnerability, but where we are talking about vulnerability is gonna index as a search result. That's something that's coming up on Google. So again, Rohit, thanks for asking that. That's something for me to go back and check the topographic audio informatives.
Thanks, Bijay. I want to combine a couple of questions as we come to the close of our valuable time today. I mean, you've taken the leap of faith to become an entrepreneur, which obviously many people in their professional careers always, aspire to do that, but they haven't taken that move. And then you're faced with challenges where you had COVID-19, we suddenly move from a physical world to a virtual world, back to a physical world, a hybrid world. I mean, any insights in, one is taking the leap of faith as an entrepreneur, and to some extent, the current lifestyle that one has to be as an entrepreneur, you were certainly got to be nimble on your feet, and from the virtual world, and then now a hybrid model. Any insights you can share from your personal experience?
Yeah, absolutely, Gautam. So one thing for everyone who's looking at jumping into entrepreneurship is just understand that it's not as rosy and as easy as it's and it's not as cool as it sounds. It's extremely difficult for you to build something from the ground, and especially if you are first-time entrepreneur. So the first thing that I would say is, before you take that jump and take that leap of faith, the way I did it, and I'm just going to quickly share this, if this is going to be of any value for you, is have enough saving for you to take care of your basic needs. And a lot of people think that, oh, I have this crazy idea and this is going to become a $1 billion idea, let me quit my job today and let's get into it. And I think and that obviously was not luxury for me. If you have that kind of luxury, if you have enough in your bank account and you can afford to do that, go ahead and do that. But for a lot of people, if you think you don't. So first thing is, like, just ask yourself, if I quit this job, how I'm going to put food on my table the next month. And if you have that sorted for another 6 months to 1 year, then and go ahead and build that. And even you don't have to quit your full-time job to build it, right? Do it on the side of it, and then do it as a side hustle. And if you think that it started generating some revenue and you think that it has got the potential, then you can jump on it. So that's one, right? So other is virtual lifestyle versus physical lifestyle. I think it's also understanding that now the world is not what it used to be, right? So a lot of people, Gautam, and who were averse to the whole idea of technology are now showing up on Zoom, trying the things, like you are in the trainer and speakers community, and I'm sure there were a lot of speakers who were averse to delivering online talks, and now given no choice, you have to show up. And I think it's more about being flexible and being and adapting to the style. And also, the other thing, Gautam, is the understanding that you are in this for a long game. And it's not a sprint; it's a marathon. You are in this for a long, long time. So, one lesson that which I learned a bit hard way, even though it's just like been 2 years of being an entrepreneur myself, but one mistake that I made is treating team as a family. Because I had bad experiences with my bosses working in an organization, and I knew that, hey, you know what, this is not the boss that I want to be. And if I ever build the organization, or if I ever lead a team, then I'm going to create this family culture where everybody is so supportive, and where everybody. And then it took me a while to realize, Gautam, when you're building a team, don't treat them as a family, treat as a sports team. And when you say that my team is my family, what that means is that when you have someone who is not, who is not good, or who is creating trouble for everyone else in the family, then you can't say that, move out of the family, right? You have to deal with that. And when you are in a sports team, if someone is not performing, then you don't fit here, right? Then you will find someone to quickly, replace it. So I think, so that's, I think, one of the lessons that took a bit longer for me to understand that, hey, you know what, I'm not building a family here. I'm building a sports team, that delivers, and and everybody support when the other person need. So yeah, I think those are some of the lessons that I would like to pass on.
Thank you so much, BJ. It's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to spend this time and break bread with you virtually and have a meaningful
Absolutely.
conversation. In closing, would you like to share any closing comments before we wrap up for today?
I think the one thing, Gautam, when I look back at 4 years of journey, that has transformed my life, like completely transformed my life, is and also what you call breaking bread, and the way I define breaking bread is by getting on a deep conversation with someone, having that meaningful conversation and going a deep layer beyond all the all the face, all sort of faces, and the kind of picture that we portray. Like, it's just a matter of you, and don't get carried away with someone else's perceived value. And there is a reason why it's called perceived value. And don't think that the person that you have a high perceived value on your head has no flaws at well. It's just a matter of getting into that one layer deeper conversation and building that lifelong relationship. So take effort in having meaningful conversations, going a deep layer and uncovering those layers. Not only you will be able to connect deeply with the person, but also that down the line will translate into a lifelong friendship where you can fall back to. So I think that's what I would like to leave your audience with.
Thank you so much, BJ. It's been an absolute pleasure. For those who'd like to learn more about BJ, do follow him on social media, subscribe to Inspired Talks, and thank you once again, BJ. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Gautam. Always pleasure connecting with you, and I'm glad I was able to share few lessons from my life and journey. So and also sorry about this flickering thing. I'm still not able to get my head around why this happens. So really sorry about this. Yeah.
No worries. I think it's been enriching content and great listening to you and your fantastic transformation. So thank you once again, BJ. And I wish each and every one of you a good evening and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.